Hello, I'm Aaron Delgado. I'm a board-certified criminal trial attorney, and I do a lot of DUI defense. So let's dive into 5 common DUI myths, things that people think are going to help them that probably won't. Plus, I'll give you one thing that absolutely will help you, but I'll have to spool you along and make you watch long enough to get all the credits, and then I'll show you at the end. The first thing we're going to talk about is myth number 5, the accuracy of the breathalyzer machine. The police officers want you to think that the breath test machine is an infallible machine. They can accurately predict and tell you whether you're guilty or not based on a machine that it spits out in the middle of the night. The reality is the breath test machine is far from the gold standard. If you were going to go to a laboratory and test something for the scientific community, you wouldn't use a $1,500 or $3,000 machine maintained by some police officers. You would use a gas chromatograph. You would have it maintained and calibrated by experienced people that are trained scientists. You would run control tests. You would do all kinds of scientific stuff that never enter the mind of the average DUI officer. The machine just takes an input, which is your breath. It assumes all humans are created equal, which, politics aside, we're not. And, spits out a number. And that number is supposed to be an approximation of the amount of alcohol in your bloodstream at any given time. Now, the only real way to know how much alcohol is in your bloodstream at any given time is to take your blood and test it, which the machine doesn't do. It approximates the level in your blood by running an infrared beam through a sample of your breath and seeing if it detects alcohol. And it does this through a series of sensors and a bunch of science I could get into, but suffice it to say, it's simple science and it's very simplified inside the machine. It's not that reliable, it's not that accurate, and if you watch any kind of videos on YouTube, you can find people getting false readings by chewing on bread, by blowing with different things in their mouths, by having cell phones near it. The police will claim that none of those things matter, none of those things work, but I've seen the machines get fouled up at seminars with all kinds of different gimmicks. The bottom line is the breath test machine simply doesn't work. If you're offered a chance to give a breath test, you should decline unless you're absolutely confident that you're going to pass. And if you have any doubts, you should ask for an independent blood test. We'll talk more about that later. Want to avoid these in your rearview mirror? Click the like button below. DUI myth number 4, a .08 BAC is the only way that you can be convicted of DUI. If you don't blow, you can't be convicted. And sadly, that's just not true. Probably these days, more than half of my clients don't give a breath test when they're asked to do so. And if you've had a previous DUI, I think the number of people who refuse a breath test goes up astronomically, probably 80% or more. Because once you've been through it, the breath test machine isn't going to change the outcome. You're still going to do a night in jail. You're still going to have to hire a lawyer. You're still going to go through all the same rigmarole. So what's the point of handing the police potentially useful information? And that's all it is, potentially useful. But here's the thing. The breath test machine gives you a number. And in Florida, that number is one of the ways you can be convicted. If you blow above a 0.08, you're presumed intoxicated. But the other way you can be convicted is if the government can show that your normal faculties are impaired. So even if you don't blow, if you're falling asleep behind the wheel, if you're staggering, stumbling, can't talk, walk, judge distances, a jury can find you guilty. And that's why in my practice, I tell people I'd rather have a good video and a bad breath test than a good breath test and a bad video. Because people are not inclined to convict on a number as much as they are to convict on what their eyes show them. And that's why in Florida, there's at least 2 ways that you can be convicted of DUI, and you have to look out for both of them if you're looking for a perfect DUI defense. Myth number 3 is that there's something you can do to fake out the machine, whether it's put a penny in your mouth, hold your tongue a special way. Now, the reality is that if you try to keep anything in your mouth, the police are going to detect that because the first thing they're going to do when they get you to the station is they're supposed to check to see that you don't have anything in your mouth. Then they're supposed to make you sit there for 20 minutes to make sure that you don't burp, belch, regurgitate, or put anything in your mouth because they don't want there to be mouth alcohol that can affect the test. So that's the first problem with the idea of putting anything in your mouth. And the second is the breath test machine itself does have software in it called a slope detector. And that software is designed to try to detect whether there's mouth alcohol or some kind of contamination in the sample. Whether it works is subject to a lot of debate, but the idea is it should trip if there's something wrong with the breath test machine's response that indicates that there's something in your mouth that's trapping alcohol or causing there to be a mouth alcohol contamination. Now, I suppose there might be some slick trick that you could hide a penny under your tongue or do something like that. But, if you can think that cleverly, you're probably not getting arrested for DUI anyway. And the officers are going to see anything you try to put in your mouth. So that's just not going to go anywhere. And I wouldn't even try it. That's only going to make you look more guilty. The same thing is true with lighting a cigarette or spraying perfume or doing anything to kind of cover the odor of alcohol. I've heard everything from chewing on peanut butter to cover up the odor to cheese crackers. I mean, everyone has some, trick their uncle taught them when they were 15. At the end of the day, the cops are all keyed in to detect anything that's trying to cover up or conceal the odor. Just like air freshener doesn't cover up the smell of marijuana, there's very few things that are going to cover up alcohol excreting from your pores, and the officers are all keyed into that. So at the end of the day, don't try to cover up or trick the test. Try to avoid being in that situation in the first place. And if you are, then you need to decline the test until you've had the advice of your attorney. The second DUI myth is ironically that only 2 drinks will get you a DUI. And I don't know where the 2-drink thing comes up. Everybody loves to say they've only had 2 drinks because, 1 drink's not believable, 3 drinks is too many, but 2 is the perfect number. I don't know what it is. Everyone who gets stopped claims they've only ever had 2 drinks, as if that's the magic number. But the reality is, depending on your height, weight, and body, as well as your comfort level with alcohol, as well as your tolerance to alcohol, 2 drinks may or may not be enough to put you over the legal limit, and it may or may not be enough to have you feeling impaired. There are slender people who that would be an intoxicating amount of alcohol, and there are heavyset people that wouldn't register that at all. There are inexperienced drinkers who would be drunk on a sip of alcohol, and there are experienced drinkers who couldn't get drunk no matter how much they drank. So, you're going to have to know your own tolerances. But the bottom line is there is a general rule of thumb that says the body can process 1 drink per hour. Maybe that's where the 2 drinks came in, that it leaves you time to only have 1 drink in your system. Regardless, if you go to our website at www.communitylawfirm.com, there's a calculator. We're going to link to it below in the video, and hopefully we can do some movie magic and show it above me somehow. We click on the link, it'll go there. You can put in your height, weight, be accurate, and it'll give you an estimate of what your blood alcohol level might be based on a number of drinks, whether it's alcohol, spirits, wine, beer, whatever the case may be. We use the Widemark formula. It's a widely used mathematical approximation of blood alcohol content. So it's there for you. We've made it easy. Drop down. You can look at the graph, see how many hours you need, how many drinks. You can also go online and we'll send you a free pocket intoxilizer. We don't warranty that. We don't claim anything's perfect, but at the end of the day, it's a good tool, I suppose, if you're uncertain. The best tool if you're uncertain is to call a friend, call a cab or Uber. There's really no excuse in today's era of ride sharing that you should ever risk drinking and driving. It's really just not worth it. My mortgage doesn't need to be paid that badly. There are other crimes I can handle. Okay, so last DUI myth that we're going to talk about is the idea that you have to cooperate with the police officers. And that might as well just be a law enforcement myth 101. And of course, police want to encourage that. And to a certain extent, you want to be polite. You don't want to get out on video and be an obnoxious ass. That's not going to do you any good. Most police officers are wearing body recorded devices. They're going to capture your interaction. The state attorney will see it. The judge will see it. The jury will see it. And unless you have some really great explanation for why you're being a raging jerk, it's not going to come off well. A lot of people are going to equate being emotional with being intoxicated. So you want to be polite, but you want to be firm, and you want to decline to do anything the officer's asking you that can make you look any worse. So you don't want to talk. You don't want to answer questions. You don't want to give roadside exercises. You don't want to give a breath test unless you're sure you're going to pass, and you want to talk to your attorney. That's it. You're not going to talk your way out of it. Once the officer has you step out of the car, 9 out of 10 times you're going to go to jail. You're not going to beat the ride. But if you keep your mouth shut, you'll beat the rap. And as I promised, there's one thing that I was going to tell you that would actually help you, and here's what it is. Now, it's going to annoy the hell out of any police officer, but you got to do it politely and you got to do it respectfully. If you decide you're going to give a breath test, or if you've already given a breath test and the officer has to get out an extra piece of paper to write down how high you blew, or you think you might have blown over the legal limit, or you're just not sure, ask the officer for a blood test and tell him, officer, I would like a blood test. I will pay for it. I have money. And my attorney will make the arrangements. If you'll let me call him, he will make the arrangements. I only need 5 minutes. At that point, the police officer is going to be on the horns of a dilemma, as they say. He has to make an arrangement in Florida for you to get a blood test. And most agencies allow you up to 20 minutes to reach your attorney. What you're hoping for is he doesn't actually do it, and then you probably get your breath test suppressed. Because if you had the opportunity to get a blood test and you asked for it, you told him you'd pay for it, you told him you'd make arrangements, and he thwarts you in doing that, then you're going to be able to get your breath test suppressed. And that's going to go a long way towards helping you win your case. The worst case scenario would be if he gets your blood and your blood is bad, but then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. At that point, you were already in trouble anyway, so it was a worthwhile Hail Mary. But that's the one thing that I would tell people to do that would actually help them in a DUI. Well, that's it. The defense rests. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you found this content informative and helpful. But more importantly, I hope you never need to use it. And remember, even a fish wouldn't get caught if it's kept its mouth shut.